So welcome everyone. It's awesome to see some folks out in the gallery this evening on a beautiful sunny spring evening. We're going to call the meeting to order, and I am going to ask councillors if there are any items they have to add to the agenda. I do have one item, and it's a letter from the Municipality of Chester regarding property tax. So we'll add that as a substantive item to the agenda under, I think, items added. Is there any other items to add? No? Okay. So could I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
I move the approval of the agenda.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Councillor Sampson. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. Next is review of the minutes from March 7th, 2022. So if there's no changes to the minutes, I'll seek a motion to approve them.
Move to approve the minutes of March 7th.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Sean Sampson. Any further discussion on the minutes? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. All right, so we have two presentations to begin our meeting this evening before we jump into the regular business. And then later, as part of our accessibility update, we'll have another guest come in to help with that. But for right now, I'm going to turn it over to Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health, Gina McDonald, with a funding request. So Gina, if you want to slide up to the table here, we'd love to hear from you. For sure, yeah. This is what I get all the time. It just loads and loads. No, it's okay. It'll come back. It'll just take time. Yeah. Okay.
All right, so I don't know if I should make this full screen, or is it okay if I just leave it like that?
Yeah, you can leave it like that,
Okay.
as long as we can see it.
All right, perfect.
We're good.
So, hello, everybody. I don't know if some of you probably don't know me. My name is Gina McDonald, and I am the Program Director for Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health. I am from River Bourgeois. I went to high school in St. Peter's, lived in Port Hawkesbury for a few years because I married a boy from there, and now we live in Grantville, where I plan to stay. I worked at Nova Scotia Health for a number of years, and just recently took this position with Cape Breton South in November. So I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to use my experience in the healthcare system to advance our agenda. So I know that most of you are familiar already with our organization. I won't give a recap about all of the origins, but basically Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health is a community organization, and it started essentially to concentrate specifically on recruiting and retaining healthcare professionals in the Cape Breton South region, which encapsulates all of Richmond County and the town of Port Hawkesbury. The group is a partnership with many other groups and organizations. We are very fortunate to have the support of both the Richmond County Council and Port Hawkesbury Town Council. We have a lot of local healthcare representatives and institutions and many other members at large from the community who are partners and stakeholders and want to see us advance our goals as well. So the goal of our group is that Cape Breton South community members can access the healthcare services they need, and that starts by identifying and acknowledging specific access to healthcare circumstances and challenges in the region and make every effort to address them. And how is this accomplished? So in practical terms, we have to advocate for ourselves and for our communities. We have to go out and get new people. We have to work hard to keep them here. And we have to come up with innovative ways to get Cape Breton South access to the healthcare services they need. So included in your documentation packet that went out this week is a logic model that was created by our group and outlines in significant detail the framework of our organization and how we plan to carry out our work. It's a living document that's updated regularly to reflect the goals and the milestones that we've reached, as well as to add new projects and new issues as they happen to come up. It serves as a tool not only to guide our overall strategy, but also for organizing our program delivery. And it's a good mechanism for us to be able to track our success and to measure our progress. So the fundamental function of a community organization in the recruitment process is to attract healthcare professionals and work with and support Nova Scotia Health in a collective effort to have those candidates live and work here. So the recruitment process for our organization employs several strategies. Like I said, working with Nova Scotia recruitment consultants is very important. Assisting with and delivering site visits and community tours, hosting rural recruitment events, building relationships with healthcare students and residents, and provide healthcare learner encouragement. That one is important because we do a lot of our recruiting, and a lot of the most successful recruiting in the area comes from building up a network of contacts based on contacts of existing healthcare professionals. So we have to make sure that we keep those lines of communication open, because speaking with doctors about their doctor friends is going to go a lot further than perhaps some of the other strategies that we might employ. Identifying and participating in healthcare professional networks, conferences, and career fairs. So because of a nationwide doctor and nurse shortage, doctors are not going to fall out of the sky and land in Richmond County. We have to go out and get them and make sure that they come here. And like I said, engage the public with a professional website and social media presence. That allows us to make sure that the lines of communication are open and give people confidence that we're the people that they can come to if they have any recruitment leads for us. So the mainland organizations like ours concentrate only on physician recruitment, but Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health is looking to recruit all different healthcare professionals in different disciplines. So we're looking for nurses, CCAs, lab techs, paramedics, pharmacists, anyone who can come in and improve the access to healthcare services in the area. So another important component of the work that we do is retention. And this often takes the shape of using word of mouth to make sure that all of our healthcare professionals are taken care of and that they're shown that they are valued. We have to make sure that them and their families are all supported in the community, and that we're able to get them access to the information or services that they need in order to make them comfortable and make them want to make Richmond County and Port Hawkesbury their long-term home. So housing is a pressing issue as far as that's concerned. I know that it is all over the province, but that's something that we are concentrating on and trying to find solutions in maintaining our workforce. Also ensuring that new healthcare workers feel welcome and supported in their community by engaging them with different cultural groups and activities. As we all know, having someone to call to find out where there's, a good table and chairs. If you're not from here and you don't know when recycling day is, having local connections in the community are going to go a long way towards making you feel more comfortable. So this is what we aim to do, and the general means by which we intend to do it: to use the tools in our toolbox to attract healthcare workers and to work hard to keep them here. As we look ahead towards achieving our goals for 2022, securing adequate funding is necessary for us to continue our efforts. So as a community organization, Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health is responsible for securing all of its own funding. And what will the funding specifically pay for? So to break it down a little bit further, this slide details the estimates of what our recruitment and retention efforts will do. It's broken down into 3 categories just to make it simple. So operational costs, which includes my salary and all of the administrative work that the Dr. Kingston Memorial Clinic does on our behalf. Retention activities, so the locum housing assistance is an example of that. Recognition projects like the award ceremony that we had at the Civic Center on Thursday night. Gift baskets and other kind of appreciation tokens that we give to the different candidates, residents, doctors that we have coming here to show them what Cape Breton is like. We give them things like cookbooks and cribbage boards and things like that to introduce them to what they might be walking into. And then also recruitment activities. So career fairs and conferences, professional promotional video is a project that we have on our list for this year, hoping that we'll be able to expand our reach to prospective pools of healthcare professionals. Local recruitment and attraction activities, so site visits and community tours, and other attraction activities like excursions and meals when we do have people in the area. So, as you know, all of these things cost quite a bit of money. This is the breakdown to be a little bit more specific. These are estimates just because we don't have any way of knowing how many doctors or nurses might want to come. We won't know until we know. So we've made our best guess based on previous years and also in being optimistic in how many new people we might be able to get to come to our area this year. So we're trying to set ourselves up to be able to accommodate the activity that we think will be reasonable to expect in 2022 and the actual amount of program delivery that we're going to be able to accomplish is based on the amount of funding that we're going to be able to secure. So our projected funding requirements for 2022 will be an estimated $108,250. We have set an ambitious agenda, but we're confident that our goals are realistic, that we have the human resources and planning in place to accomplish them. Our goals are targeted specifically in the interests of residents of Port Hawkesbury and Richmond County, and as a committee, we feel that the success of our efforts will be hugely impactful to healthcare in this area. So to that end, as you continue your budget deliberations, Cape Breton South Recruiting for Health is respectfully submitting a request to Richmond County Council for $30,000 in funding for 2022, in addition to a 3-year commitment to provide our committee with the same annual funding. We have made the same request for the funding and commitment from the Port Hawkesbury Town Council last week. So the remaining funding that we will need in order to accomplish our goals that we set, we hope to secure through support from other organizations, grants, and fundraising. We are committed to our goals and to involving our communities in achieving them, and we hope our partners and stakeholders will be able to see the value in the work that we're trying to do and support us in our efforts. So thank you all very much for allowing me to present to you today on behalf of the committee, and to the best of my ability, I will take any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Gina. Councillors, do we have any questions for Gina? It's a quiet group.
I just had one,
It was a
Gina,
very
but-
thorough presentation.
Yeah, I just had one, but you answered it when it came to like, you're looking more at expanding towards CCAs and paramedics and all those, so.
Yeah.
But I do see here on your form here that RCMP is being represented by the EHS members right at the moment, or not?
Yeah, so when, in my discussions with EHS, They said that right now they don't have the resources to have someone commit to attending the meetings, just because of scheduling and things like that. A lot of the local members are aware of the work that we're doing, and we do have conversations with them more casually, but at the moment, they don't have any resources to commit to our committee specifically.
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead, Debbie.
I'm just thinking that as we're working towards like recruiting of particularly, let's say, pharmacists, right, who would work in private settings in a lot of cases, have we reached out to some of those businesses who would be looking to probably backfill? Like I have a friend who's the pharmacist at Foodland at St. Peter's, and I know she's always looking for someone to replace her. So I wonder if we may be able to get some corporate sponsorship from some of those folks as well.
I actually have spoken to all of them,
Yeah.
because we did have one particular potential recruit that came forward and contacted all of the pharmacies to see if they had any interest.
Yeah.
We actually just had another pharmacist come down the pipe yesterday.
Okay.
So all of the applicable businesses will be contacted going forward to make sure that we have all of them in the mix.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Deputy Warden. Any other questions for Gina? Okay. Well, Gina, council is heading into, our budget discussions, and I'm sure this will be something that we consider going forward. That'll probably be more of a May timeline.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
You know to find me. Thank you
Thank
very
you so
much,
much.
everybody.
Gina, thank you.
Okay. All right, so our next presentation comes from Housing Nova Scotia. Sean Bond and Cecil Smith are here this evening to discuss the home repair program. So, welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you,
You're welcome.
council members and folks in the gallery and folks online. Just thank you for the opportunity for us to be here today to kind of give some information and hopefully clarify some things and not add more confusion. So we'll try. Not try to confuse more, we'll try to clarify.
We love clarification.
So start off with a little bit of background on Housing Nova Scotia. And, first, I'm Cecil Smith. I'm a senior caseworker with Housing Nova Scotia out of the Sydney office. Sean Bond is a caseworker with the Sydney office as well. Our mandate area is Cape Breton Island, so we cover all of the island, all regions. So we'll talk a little bit about some of our confusion that happens around our name with housing, because I think in general people hear housing and they think of housing programs, Housing Nova Scotia, and then there's the housing authorities and those kind of things. So what we are is the Housing Nova Scotia is basically a delivery agent for the province of Nova Scotia. All staff are actually from the Department of Municipal Affairs and Housing. So it's actually, there's no staff within Housing Nova Scotia. That's the kind of lead name that delivers the programs on behalf of government. So just add a third housing in there to make everything a little confusing. The Housing Authority is something different from us, and both offices usually get a lot of calls for each other and a lot of confusion around what roles are which. So our programs are aimed mostly at, primarily at homeowners to help provide, improve the conditions of housing to make it safe and adequate housing for individuals to stay within their home. And we do this with a series of grants and loan programs. So we have forgivable loans, we have grants, and we have some straight repayable programs as well. So we're going to go through some of the eligibility requirements on those programs, and then maybe get a little bit of the specifics about each of the programs. And if you have any questions along the way, please ask, or if you want to wait till the end. So the first requirement we have of eligibility is the household income limits. And another layer of confusion is the what we call bedroom counts. And so we go by bedroom counts, and there's a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and a 3-bedroom. But these aren't actually based on physical bedrooms within a house. So an individual or a couple would be a 1-bedroom count, even though they may live in a 3-bedroom house. So it's broken down, and so each individual or couple is one. An additional person in the house would be another second person. If you have 2 people under the age of 18 that are of the same gender, that would be considered a single bedroom count again. And so we have those, and each bedroom count accumulates to come up with the 1, 2, or 3 bedroom levels that we have. So for outside of CBRM, the income limits for each of those categories is $47,500 for an individual or couple, $54,500 for an individual couple and one other individual, and then the top is $64,000. So And these recently, probably within the past 6 months, it was changed to make an increase in those, in those income levels. So it's allowed us to reach out and help more individuals and get more participation in the program.
They're reviewed on a regular basis by CMHC and the province, so they will change during sometimes depending on whatever studies or whatever analysis those two groups do. So
And these are net income numbers, right?
these are
Gross income.
Gross
yeah.
income numbers.
Yeah.
And most sources of income are counted in our programs, but there are a few cases where we have income that's excluded from it. So child support payments that are made, those are excluded from the income levels. Some of these would have been previously included, but they've been, over time, some have been excluded because they saw it as fitting to help more people with the programs. If you have a person living in the house that's up to the age of 25, that's attending a full-time program in a university, or if they're in school, with verified enrollment, we can actually exclude any income. So you have a lot of students that are working part-time, making a bit of money. In the past, that would have put them over income for the household. And knowing that a lot of that resource goes to pay for their education, their ongoing requirements while they're going to school and that stuff, it really was seen as something that kind of was, although they're making money, there's still an added burden for attending university and that stuff. So that's been excluded. Scholarships and bursaries, one-time payments. So one example is this past year with the COVID relief and that kind of stuff, individual seniors were receiving a one-time $500 payment. That's excluded from income, so we don't have to count that because it's a one-time injection of money that could put somebody over, but we exclude that because of it's only one time, it's not considered. But now if you receive an annual payment from registered income fund, even though it's one payment per year, if it's a regular payment every year, that's considered normal regular payment, so that'd be counted. But one-time payments are excluded.
all right, so for example, if you were to take out a lump sum out of your RRSP 1 year, but it's not a regular occurring thing each year, then that would be excluded.
Okay.
And GST and HST payments are not included.
And so we get into some of the other items that we have for our eligibility. So we look at primarily it's issues with a home that would be if you have structural issues and services to the home. So if you have issues with electrical, arcing, sparking, roof leaking, no heat, no water, no sewer, that's primarily what our programs are geared towards, helping with those kind of critical infrastructure needs within the home. What we consider is repairs that are under $1,000 are considered household maintenance. So our programs would look at anything above $1,000 or over. One thing is you must own and occupy a house for a minimum of 1 year. So you might have somebody who had bought a house, but they had not resided there for a year or two. So it's, you have to live within the house for a year and own it for that period. We do consider previous assistance, as we'll get into later on with some of the programs, is that we have programs that you get, if you get maximum assistance, it's for a 15-year period, and some programs are for a 5-year period and that kind of stuff. So those things are factored in, and some are dependent on if the house had received some of that assistance before, not just the person.
Right, so for example, if you purchased a house and the previous owner had received assistance from us, we would consider that as part of the previous assistance and factor it into how much money would be available to the new owner of the home.
Oh, based on the home versus.
It's based on the home, that's
Yeah.
right.
But also could be based on the owner, like if an owner moved from home to home, would it also count?
Yeah, there's some programs that are at the individual level, so not all programs are tied specifically to those. The longer-term, bigger programs are tied to the structure itself, yeah.
Oh, the structure, okay.
So the home must be assessed for $200,000 or less, and that'd be at the cap. So with the way that prices have been going up and on homes, it's just been outstripping the some of the increases and that stuff. So what we do is we allow for it to be the capped amount. So it's otherwise a fair number of people will be excluded from getting assistance, right? So it does go by that cap figure. So another thing is you can't own more than one residential property. So if somebody has a primary house and they also have a house that they may have a family member living in, they may have it as a rental property, that program would not be you would not be eligible for this kind of assistance, because looking at people who are having difficulty maintaining their primary residence.
We use the property online to determine how the property is assessed, and we've run into situations where a property was assessed as residential, but it was basically a building lot with nothing on it, or a home that's been abandoned for years. So in that case, we wouldn't count that.
Yeah. So if it's not habitable,
Right.
if there's no facilities like electric, sewer, water, and those kind of things. Property taxes must be current, and recognize that we're dealing with a vulnerable population with income levels and that stuff that, you know, you can get behind in property tax, but if they came to the municipality and they have an adequate arrangement in place with the municipality, that they're making regular payments, then that's something we would count that as being in line. We can only approve any work that's carried out prior to we do approval on the application wouldn't be eligible. So we have people that'll call that they have emergency situations, but they had to go ahead and get the work done, and they may call, but unfortunately we can't go back and help where costs have already been, the repair has already been done. One unique thing too is that with the disability tax credit, we get a lot of people within our focus area that because of their income levels, they may not need a disability tax credit, so they may have never applied for it. But if there are repairs to the home that are related to the disability of the individual who can get the credit, we can deduct that disability tax credit from the amount. And I think it's around $8,500 right now.
Yeah.
So that can be a significant reduction to bring somebody in line with our income limits. And if you have a couple that's in the house that, or two individuals, we count both of their tax credits, as long as the repairs are reasonably related to the disability that the person has. And what we do is we basically provide a financial assistance to the clients, the homeowners. So the contract is actually between the homeowner and the contractor. So we're not in the middle of that relationship. We provide the funding to the homeowner to hire a contractor. So what we do is we get bids from contractors that the homeowner sends in. So we look at it that all things being equal, that they've submitted bids of people they want to work on their property. So we go by the lowest bid that comes in, and that's how we set the approval based on that. But all arrangements between hiring the contractor and any disputes or anything arise between the homeowner and the contractor, it's between them to resolve.
Right.
So we'll get into some of the program specifics that we have. So we have what's called the Senior Citizens Assistance Program, is SCAP, and the Provincial Home Emergency Repair Program, FERP. Basically, it's the same program, but the SCAP program is specifically targeted to people that are 65 years and older. With that there, the maximum assistance is $6,500, and that can be provided every 5 years. If somebody applied to the program and only received a portion of the $6,500, and another repair item come up, so maybe they had an oil tank they had to get replaced, or a water heater, and we assisted with that. If they're still under that maximum of $6,500, we can provide additional assistance up to that maximum, and that's over a 5-year period. The Emergency Repair Program, or ERP, that's a $7,000 grant for a home, and that's specific to rural areas. So that's looking at places that have, I think it's 2,200 people or less, and there's no central core town or something. Yeah, exactly. So that's specifically for that, and to deal with sudden losses, sort of, you lost your heat, plumbing, sewer, some of those major repairs again that we can assist with. And we do have programs for, in not all cases, there are some programs that actually, if you're not a homeowner but you're a resident of the home, there is assistance available. One of those programs is the Access a Home program, and this is geared to individuals who are currently in a wheelchair or reasonably expected to be within the next 6 months. And this helps with the architectural barriers that, so widening doors, maybe a ramp, a roll-in shower to accommodate the wheelchair and those kind of things. So that's specific to those repairs that are related to the somebody trying to ambulate their residents with a wheelchair.
Right. So for example, if you have a parent who's wheelchair bound and they're going to move into your home with you, if any modifications need to be made to accommodate them being in a wheelchair, they could apply to this program.
So the parent would apply, it would be their income that would be counted, but then it could, regardless of what the income is in the home?
Yeah, and what we do is, so we assess it based on the target individual.
Yeah.
And what they do is get permission from the homeowner to have the repairs done.
Okay.
Where they don't own it, right? So it
Yeah.
would be, yeah.
Okay, yeah, so the applicant would actually be the person who's gonna use it?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So the next section we get into is forgivable loans, and gonna give some background on how they work. So they're set up as a straight loan, but the way the program goes, as long as you stay within the house, so as long as you own and occupy the house, you fall within the program criteria, and you'll continue to earn forgiveness, and that's over a 1 to 5 year period, and that depends on the amount of assistance you get. So if you get the maximum assistance, it would be the full 5 years that it gets forgiven over. And what happens is, in our system, as long as you meet the ongoing requirements of owning and occupying, the assistance the payment gets done internally in our system. So actually, there's no bill or payment that goes out to the individual. The only time that program becomes repayable is if the person ceases to live in the house, or if they sell the house.
Okay.
And then that becomes due and payable, the balance, not anything forgiven up to that point is forgiven, and it would just be the balance from that point forward.
One common occurrence is you have a husband and a wife who've received a forgivable loan, and one of them passes away before the forgivable period is up. If both of them have signed the promissory note, then it doesn't become payable, because there's one remaining in the home, still living in the home.
Yeah.
And if both of them would pass away, it would disappear,
It would be
or payable by the
payable.
estate?
By the estate,
That's
yeah.
right, yeah,
And only the balance that's not forgiven at that point.
right.
And so one more question on that. So
Sure.
if the promissory note is only signed by one person and that person passes on, is is the spouse who wasn't on the promissory note responsible to pay?
Now, a spouse, actually, it would be all cases, you'd have both sign on the promissory note.
Okay,
Yeah,
so you would make sure of that?
Exactly,
Okay.
yeah. So-
Definitely.
Okay,
Yeah.
great,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But we have had cases where somebody else may have resided in the house that might not have been the owner, but through the passing of the individual.
Right.
It went to them, and they were originally part of the house during the application and all that. We can qualify them and get them to sign a promissory note to continue on the forgiveness.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you have the number 18,000 there, am I remembering that that's,
We're about to get to that.
okay, all right, the number sounded familiar, so,
Yeah.
okay.
It is,
Yeah, so so our major program we have is the Residential Rehabilitation Assistance Program, and that's up to a maximum of $18,000. And that's one of the ones that's every 15 years. So if you received, again, portion of that assistance within the last 15 years, we can top it up to that maximum of 18,000. And that's the one that gets tied to a house. So if somebody, say within the past 2 years, has received assistance for, say, a furnace, the house already has that updated. So that's why it gets reduced from, based on the property level as opposed to the individual level. Because the house still benefited, that residents benefited from the assistance that was provided. And this is to maintain a minimum standard of kind of upkeep of the house, so that, like all repairs that are identified, so if we went in and there was a plumbing issue, there's no heat, you have a leaking roof, with that program, all repair items have to be addressed. We can't just do the furnace, because we know we're leaving somebody in a situation where, although they have the furnace fixed, if their electrical is a fire hazard, then you really haven't advanced their situation by leaving them in an unsafe environment.
We've seen situations where the repairs are estimated to cost more than 18,000. And when that's the case, anything over and above the 18, the homeowner is responsible to contribute, which can make it tough sometimes, but, yeah.
Because we already know we're dealing with the individuals that, the income, low income levels and that stuff, so it does become a challenge. The Disability Residential Rehabilitation Assistance Program is that program can be paired with the other RAP program, so you can get an additional $16,000 of assistance. Again, it's 15-year period that's available over, and the house would have to be up to the minimum standard that would be under our RAP program. So as long as the home is up to standard with that, or if we can bring it up to standard with that initial money, the disability repair assistance is also available there for helping with all kinds of things that may help with somebody's mobility issues and their disability.
So, for example, if somebody applies for a ramp for a wheelchair, and that's all they apply for, when our inspectors go in, they have to also check that the house is up to a certain standard. So if the furnace isn't adequate or the electrical needs upgrading, that has to be addressed in order to qualify for the ramp. And for those repairs, we can use the RAP program and then combine it with this DRAP program for the ramp. So both can be combined.
And with that program, it's, when you combine the two of them and it goes over $25,000, the mortgage has to be taken on the property because of the amount. But legal costs can be factored in and is still within that maximum between the two assistance programs, but legal fees can be added in and covered under that program as well.
Yeah, it's still forgivable even with a mortgage.
Yep. The Hasty Program is another program that's, it's geared towards helping individuals, seniors again, and that's helping with maybe things with the mobility, maybe grab bars within the washroom, raised toilets, could be railings along the wall, kind of helping when they're going down the hallway or something like that. So with their diminished abilities, it helps to kind of help with those age-related kind of issues. And again, it's one that resident of either the house or if it's a rental property, they can apply for that. They'd have to get the landlord's permission. The landlord would it would have to be up to a standard to make sure that they live in an adequate and safe environment, and that assistance can be used to help that. And that's $3,500 maximum. That's a one-time if you receive the maximum, but we can do, it could be a couple of applications that bring you up to that maximum again. And that's forgiven over a 6-month period, so it's a shorter period of time. You want to go into the...
Yep, so the down payment assistance program, it's to help first-time homeowners purchase a home with their down payment. So the maximum assistance available is 5% of the purchase price of the home. They must be a first-time homeowner, which is in keeping with CMHC's guidelines. The maximum household income has to be $75,000 or less. And the purchase price of the home must be less than $200,000. That was recently bumped up from $150,000 because of market conditions as they are today. We ask that the applicants have a pre-approval in place from either a bank or some other financial institution prior to coming to us for the down payment assistance. And obviously they have to meet our lending criteria, job stability, a good credit rating, the ability to repay their debt. So the loans are interest-free. It's a maximum 10-year term. No payments are required in the first year. So 12 months from approval is when they can begin paying. The loan has to go strictly towards the purchase price of the home. It can't be used for renovations or other closing costs such as legal fees. And a mobile home is eligible if it's permanently affixed to a foundation on the property owned by the applicant. And the small loan assistance program, it's maximum, this is just basically a straight loan, term loan. Maximum assistance of $20,000. Household income must be less than $60,000. It's a 10-year term. For amounts approved, 10 grand and under, it's secured with a promissory note. 10 grand and over, it's secured with a mortgage on the property. And again, because it's a loan, the applicant has to meet minimum qualifying criteria such as good credit, job stability, the ability to repay the debt.
And something what Sean mentioned before about that if the assistance required exceeds what we have available, we can use the small loan assistance program to work with those other, the disability repair program and the homeowner repair program.
Right, so if estimated repairs came in at, let's say, $22,000, we could look at doing it under RAP, $18,000, and the balance under a small loan. Questions or comments?
And just to maybe something else to mention that we focus specifically on the homeowner programs. We do have an assistance program for rental properties as well, and that can be individual rental apartment units or it can be a rooming house, and there's assistance available for that. And with those programs, you have to meet standards of quality of the housing that you're putting the individuals into, and they have to meet the income requirements. So it's, to get the assistance, you have to house people that are targets of our program, that helping.
And there's a cap on how much you can charge them rent per month. And we have all that information if anybody's interested, so.
Yeah, and then the one last thing is the, for developers of new housing, that's a program that's delivered out of Halifax, and we do have contact available. If anybody's interested, we can provide that with you guys at any time. That so that's if somebody's looking at doing a new build for affordable housing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. All right, well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Councillors, do you have any questions for Sean or Cecil? I just want to mention it's great to see those limits kind of going up a little bit because costs are going through the roof.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not sure if there's going to be any wiggle room on the 18,000 in the near future, but I feel that contracting prices are going to also continue to rise, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure how far that's going to get you
Right.
in a year or so. So
Well, just one example is 2x4 that cost you say $3
Right.
at the beginning of all this is we've seen $9,
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
they've started to come down but gone back up, right? So it's
That's,
hard.
so that's 3 times as much, so the 18 should become 54.
Exactly. I like your math. That's good. I like
math
that.
works. So
Yeah.
Sean has good math.
yes, definitely. Yes.
What's the typical turnaround for applications?
It's hard to
Depends, I
say, so
suspect, right?
it's, the way the process works is we receive the application and determine if the applicant is eligible. And we look at the repair items, if we see the need, we'll move it to the inspection stage. So we'll have one of our inspectors go out and do a physical assessment of the repair items needed. If it's, and then once he comes back, him and I will get together and look at putting out some sheets, some bid or estimate sheets for the homeowner to get quotes. So we usually require 2 quotes per repair item, and that's usually what takes the longest.
Yeah.
And so once those quotes are received, we'll go over them and ensure that they're okay. Sometimes they're too high, we'll ask the homeowner to get a 3rd quote. And then, but if the bids are acceptable, we'll identify the lowest, and then the application is sent for review to management, and then the decision is made. So it varies, some are fast, some are not so fast.
And we kind of triage everything based on the urgency of the repair. So if it's no heat, no water, those kind of things,
They go to the
roof
top.
leaking, yeah, we get those dealt with right away. Others that are critical but not urgent, the wait list could be 2 to 4 months. So yeah, it depends on the nature of the repairs and that kind of stuff. So.
Okay. Great. Any other questions? Okay, well, Cecil and Sean, thank you so much for coming this evening.
welcome.
It's really
No,
great
thank you
for us to
for-
be
Thank you
up
so
to
much.
date on the latest, so really
Definitely,
appreciate it.
and we're only a phone call away if
Absolutely.
you
As
ever
most
need
of
us.
you
so.
know.
Yeah,
Everyone speed dial, yes, for
I maybe have
sure.
called you before.
Once or twice.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, sir.
All right, so we'll move along to the next items on our agenda then. Dawn, I see you have several items. If you want to begin with the Richmond County Truckers Association fuel price adjustment request, please.
Sure, so you folks received the briefing note from our Director of Public Works regarding the Richmond County Truckers Association request to review the rates that they currently use to haul garbage and recyclables to Guysborough and Sidport respectively. We all know that the diesel prices obviously have gone fairly high, and they're asking that we review the way we provide them funding for their service. We do currently have an agreement that we've signed back in 2019. It was a 5-year deal. At that time, we gave them a slight increase in prior rates, and these folks have been doing it for the last 20 years, so obviously the cost to take garbage to Sydney and Guysborough has increased substantially, so they're requesting that we look at hauling, reviewing the rates based on the Truckers Association of Nova Scotia monthly diesel fuel prices. Now, we currently do that with our garbage collectors. We do a fuel price adjustment, I'm going to say semi-annually. I know we were doing semi-annually. I'd have to confirm it's either semi-annually or annually that we were changing the prices based on the increase in the diesel fuel price. And I think that Based on the information from the Provincial Truckers Association, it's done similarly. The Director of Public Works seems to think that, you know, the request is reasonable. It is obviously going to impact the budget. We're looking at anywhere between $14,500 to $18,000 in increased expenses to truck that material to those two places. They're quite far, Sydney and Guysborough. It certainly could be something referred to budget, but I think, you know, we're going to have council, you know, agree to have a new agreement drawn up and get signatures on it. So I don't know if we want to do that tonight, or if you guys want to discuss it any further, or if you have any other questions that you might want to ask the director or get some more clarification on it. That's totally up to yourselves. We can prepare something further for council if that's necessary.
Councillors, do you have any questions on that?
I do. So when I reviewed the chart that was provided by the Director of Public Works, he provided the diesel fuel price chart, basically, which talked about what the surcharge has been since we negotiated that contract in 2019. So my understanding is that since April of 19, we've been paying a 10% surcharge. So even in those months, for example, February to December of 2020, January to June of 2021, when the surcharge would have been, according to the Truckers Association, under 10%, we've still been paying a 10% surcharge. Is that correct?
No, I think the price that was there in 2019 prior to April 1st, we just increased the prices 10%.
Okay, so
So they've been steady since then. They haven't changed.
Okay.
So there has been no adjustment made up or down because of the fuel price.
Well, I figured it
changing.
wasn't going down. I just assumed
Yeah.
that it was consistently plus 10%.
The rate stays the same. It's stayed the same for the last 3 years.
So, I mean, for me, I'm not adverse to agreeing to their request, because we need them to be we need these truckers to be in business so they can actually take our materials to the landfill for sure. But I would like to see that it's a fluid piece, meaning whatever it is for that month, if it's 2%, then we're gonna pay 2%. And if it's 24%, as it was in February, then we're gonna pay 24%, right? So as long as, and I think that's what I understand from Chris's briefing note. Yeah, so as long as
Yeah.
that's what it is to me, I would be in favor of it, but I just wanted to be sure I was clear on what Chris's notes were.
Yeah, and it does have the opportunity to go down as well.
Right,
Right.
where in the past it had just been a set rate instead of going
Yeah.
down, yeah, okay.
Any other questions or comments?
I think I'd be okay with it based on the Director of Public Works feeling comfortable with this. I mean, I don't think it, I don't think any of us haven't noticed the price of diesel, especially much higher than gas, especially lately. It's not a long-term solution to leave it at that same rate. There's no other way around it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I know all too well what it takes to ship some product across this province, right? So, yeah, no, I'm in agreement with it, yeah.
Okay. So at this time then, I guess the options would be to defer to budget, or we could make a motion at this time. That's, I guess, if you want an immediate solution. Okay. So the motion, I guess, would be to adjust the rates for hauling municipal solid waste and recyclables in accordance with the TANS monthly diesel fuel price as posted. Is that, people are agreeable to that?
I'd be willing to make that motion.
Okay. Could I have a seconder, please?
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Sean Sampson. So the motion is that the municipality adjust the rates for hauling municipal solid waste and recyclables in accordance with the Truckers Association of Nova Scotia monthly diesel fuel price as posted on the Nova Scotia government website. All right, any further discussion?
I think it's just important for members of the public to know that the Director of Public Works has estimated that this may cause about, a $14,000 or $18,000 adjustment on our budget, which is really in the size of our budget, not really a material number. So I think that that's important as people consider, our decision.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Warden. So any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. Okay, Dawn, back over to you on the submission for 2022-23 cost-shared paving submission list.
So back a couple of months ago, we submitted an application for some cost-shared program paving projects with the province. We had four J-class roads that we had provided to the province for cost sharing to pave those roads, and we got back a letter at the end of March indicating that one road was approved, the other three were rejected. However, they did indicate that we could provide those roads in future if we ever wanted to add those to a future request. As you can see on the letter from the Public Works Office of the Minister, the road is Langley Lane, and that's in Point Tupper. It's 0.36 kilometers. The total estimated cost, excluding HST, is 145. The cost shared estimates, excluding HST, are 72,500. As you can see by the Director of Public Works comments, and in the letter as well, it does indicate that we have 20 business days from the time of receipt. So he's worked that out to, from the 24th would be 20 days, would be April 20th. That would be our safe deadline. So it certainly is, I mean, yeah, one project is better than none, but it is a substantial amount of money, and it's certainly a decision that council's gonna have to make to press forward at this point in time. It certainly wouldn't be enough time between now and, of course, the council meeting to finally approve the recommendation of committee of whole, but I'm sure we could, forward them off indication that we would be going forward with the project or not going forward with the project, and put the final approval at council.
Okay, thanks, Dawn.
And another thing, actually, the Director of Public Works did say that the estimates could be higher once tendered too, so I would dare say that the 72.5, excluding HSC, would be the least amount of cost to us.
Yeah, that is some of the feedback that I've been receiving from our MLAs, that costs are coming in much higher than they would have this time last year. So that's definitely a risk we run. So I'd like to just open this for discussion for councillors. I mean, I think we knew the cost would be high, and for a municipality our size, that's a chunk of money. So any kind of conversation or comments by council?
But just to be clear, that would come out of the, whatever building fund, the former gas tax money, would it not? We could leverage that, use that towards this?
I believe it does qualify.
Yeah, okay.
That's where I was going, Brent. as
That's,
well,
yeah.
Okay, Deputy Warden.
Well, I have something to say. I mean, it's a road that I brought forward when we were compiling the list. It's in dire shape. It's had very little routine maintenance done. I have residents on that road who have lived there their entire lives and, can count maybe one or two times that they've even had ditching done or whatever. So it's in dire straits, whether it's spring, winter. I think there would be very few days that the road is in good shape. I think paving it would secure its good nature for a fair bit of time, and I think would remove a lot of concerns that those residents would have, and myself as well. Given that we did get, we've gotten a couple of hits of double funding for the community, builders fund, whatever it's, I certainly would like to move this forward. I'll leave the opportunity for others to make comments, but I'll be looking to make a motion to approve this.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I agree with Councillor Brent and Councillor Melanie Sampson. I mean, we put these four on the list for a reason, because they were in dire need of repair. So, and again, going back to Councillor Brent, his statement about the gas tax community fund, I'm sure that we could take it from there and it would qualify for it, right? So, yeah, I'd be willing to support that motion.
Okay, thanks, councillor. All right, so I'm hearing then that folks are generally in favor of moving forward and notifying the province that we would like to move forward with the upgrades to Langley Lane and Point Upper. So would someone care to make a motion to that effect?
I would love to make that motion. So just perhaps CEO, if you can just help me out. So my motion would be that we respond to Department of Public Works in the affirmative that we would like to proceed with the project at Langley Lane. Should I also include in the motion where we would take the, okay, very good, then that's the motion, thank you.
Okay. All right, so could I have a seconder on that motion? Councillor Sean Sampson, okay. So the motion is that Richmond County notify the Nova Scotia Department of Public Works that we would like to proceed with the project Langley Lane as outlined in their correspondence from March 24th. Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, so all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. Back to you, Don.
So as is customary each year when the revenue manager has a tax sale, we reviewed properties that did not sell at previous tax sales and approached council based on standards in the MGA that provide us the opportunity to alter the amount owing and create a minimum bid so that these properties can sell at a tax sale. So in this case, we have 4 properties that require a minimum bid. 2 properties that are listed were brought to tax sale twice. The first 2 on the very first page of the revenue manager's memo to myself, and both tax sales were unsuccessful. In June of 2021, it was total. The amount was the total amount that was owed on the property. In February of 2022, council had approved a minimum bid of principal only, and you can see the principal only on those two accounts. They did not sell at the minimum bid. So what we're asking, or what the revenue manager is asking, is that we further adjust that balance somehow to try and encourage sale through an approved minimum bid of council, that council approves the treasurer to sell those, to advertise and sell those properties.
Now, CEO Marchand, if we go with a minimum bid, can we have like a live auction on those?
This tax sale coming up in June will be public.
Okay.
It's going to be a public auction.
Right.
It will not be tendered as it was in the past.
Right, good, thank you.
If you could refresh my memory, last time that we did, because we've done this previously, this council has, 50% of the principal, was that what we had done previously, or what would you recommend as something
We
that would be
did
reasonable?
principal only, so.
No, we did
reduced-
principal only in February, but have we ever done it where the principal only didn't?
This council has not,
Oh, we
but
haven't.
in the past, we've reduced the amount to 50% of principal. We've also done $1,000, and if it hasn't sold at $1,000, then we would start to bid at any amount.
Yeah, I remembered 50%. It must have been from watching another meeting,
Yeah.
not ourselves, okay.
Thanks, Deputy Warden.
Yeah.
Councillor Brent Sampson?
Yeah, my only thought on these is I didn't know, I couldn't find it on the weekend in there, if the size showed up on the documents for that. I'm just wondering, like this first one at 37,400 and that, 50%, depending on the size of that, maybe 50% is still really high. So,
Well, there are some factors which would contribute to a high principal only. In the case of that first property there was a fairly large building on it that was torn down, and the cost associated with the tear down was added on to the account. So that certainly did
yeah,
increase the
which ultimately
increase.
doesn't add to the property value
Exactly,
necessarily, yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
But there's no way to recover that. You're not going to recover that value because they didn't bid at 37. So.
Okay, so I'm thinking we'll just treat these one at a time. So the first one is property number 01415298. Are councillors interested in setting that at principal only or below principal, and if so, by how much?
Yeah, it was a principal only.
These two were principal only.
But the option
In-
would be to return though, to principal only. try again or reduce, right?
Yeah, and
It's
I
not-
guess
I
the
don't have an
idea there is
appetite
that it's
for that.
highly unlikely that they would sell at
I
that
think so
value.
too, yeah.
In this case here, when you're on your second tax sale, you're gonna have to provide a pretty good incentive
Yeah.
for the property to sell.
Agreed.
And that one is assessed at $17,300, but what's going on it right now is 30-some thousand, so I mean,
Yeah.
it obviously makes no sense.
So where would councillors kind of fall in this? Did you want to try for, 50% is still high based on the
Yeah.
assessment, but.
I agree.
Yeah, 50% get you at 18.5 or something like that, so.
What about
15.
if we set it at the assessment rate of 17.3 and see where that gets us? Just,
Okay.
it's a
Yeah.
dartboard.
It is, it really is,
I guess-
yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if the odds are better with a live auction or not, really. Tendered, it's hard to say.
Well, it's been my experience that we've actually had properties start at $100.
Yeah.
And they've gone to the point where they were above the original amount that council had set, so sometimes when the auction gets going and people start bidding on it, it tends to rise quicker than you thought it would.
Okay. So Deputy Warden is suggesting the assessment value. Councillor Brent Sampson, how are you feeling about that?
I think I'd go lower than that, and it's only, maybe it's my auctioning background. But
You're not running
oftentimes-
this auction.
No, I know, but
Councillor
oftentimes
Sampson,
you-
sorry.
you start a little higher, I know what you're saying, sometimes if you can start it at a lower amount, doesn't mean it's gonna sell for a lower amount, it's often that you have to get people interested in the beginning. I'm just thinking this puts a different dynamic into it if it's a live auction as opposed
It
to the
does.
tendering process. I would think somewhere in the $5,000 to $10,000 range, maybe.
Okay. Councillor Sean Sampson?
And we're just talking minimum bids, right? Yeah,
Right.
yeah, so I mean,
Start bid.
yeah, you'd go a little lower. I said 15, but I mean, if you went, he said 5 or 10. If you went 12.5, 13, and like you say, once the bidding starts, maybe it gets to the assessment value of the 17.3 you're talking about, right? So
Okay.
I'd go a little lower, yeah.
Okay.
In this case, the county can collect up to that 37,452, is it? I mean, it's not obviously gonna go that high, I don't think, but it wouldn't go into that, separate account for 20 years above whatever our minimum is in that case, right? Because it's owed.
No, that's right,
Okay.
we wouldn't be able, it would,
Okay.
anything above that amount.
Would have to go into the.
Yeah.
it would
So
go
it's
into-
Actually,
like- it's not like
it
by-
wouldn't be 37, it'd be what's on the account.
Oh, yeah, with interest and all.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
So basically, there's probably no ceiling on that one.
Yeah,
theory.
you're not
I
hitting
just
that
mean
one.
by setting the number lower, by setting
not
the base
hitting that
number
one.
lower, we're not somehow
No.
handcuffing ourselves. that
No.
A good portion of that is gonna go in,
No.
okay, yep, all right.
Okay, so are you suggesting, you said between 5 and 10, are you suggesting 10 or 5,
Go for it.
guidance?
Yeah, I'll suggest 10,000.
So Councillor Brent Sampson has suggested a $10,000 minimum bid on the property number 01415298. Is there,
I'll second that
okay,
Well, what we could do is we could just, itemize them all and
and
then,
decide and do
and
one
then make
motion.
one
Okay.
motion for
we'll
all,
just do one motion.
all
Okay.
minimum bids.
Sure.
So maybe I'll just kind of collect agreement for now. So you're okay with the 10,000, Deputy Warden, Councillor Sean Sampson, okay. So then the next item, the next property is in District 2, it's property number 03222241, had to count the twos there. Okay, and a similar deal, the principal only amount is gone twice to tax sale at $4,760.21. So would councillors like to start the minimum bid lower than that?
$2,000 makes sense? What's the assessed value on this?
42.
Okay.
The assessed is a bit higher there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Is that a real assessed,
thought
though?
you meant
CAO
40
Marchand, like, is it?
I'm not,
But I-
I
You
wouldn't
don't
be
really-
able
you're
to
not
say
familiar
yes
with
or
the
no,
property?
but I
Okay.
would dare say that
I thought you meant
it's
4,200.
probably not indicative of the value of the property, otherwise I think it would have sold at
Yeah.
47.60.
Yeah, because it wasn't very much when we put it
Yeah.
last time. Where do you think, in 2,000? I would agree.
Okay, so we have a suggestion of $2,000. Counselor Sampson?
Yeah,
You're okay with
I'm okay with
that?
that, yeah.
Okay, so I think we have a general idea for this one. So then the next two properties is property number 0963039.
So these properties did not, we only had one sale on these properties.
Yeah.
At the actual amount,
Yeah, with interest and everything.
pardon me?
With interest and everything.
Everything,
Yeah.
and expense, yeah,
Okay,
yes, we did.
so at this point, I guess the option is to send it back for the full amount, or to do principal only, or some other amount for counselors to consider.
I'd say we should just try principal only and see where we get.
I think so, that's generally been the practice in the past,
Yeah.
right, to try that first before we.
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay. Counselor Sean Sampson?
I'm okay with
Okay. So I think we have a general agreement on that. And then on the fourth one would be property number 090553363. Same deal, principal only?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so then I guess we'd be looking for a motion to instruct the, actually, did I see a note from the revenue manager, if the minimum acceptable bid still does not encourage sales, council would need to direct him to sell the properties for any bid?
Yeah, that's if you chose to do that.
Yeah, so I think are we happy with this as is, or do you want to kind of enter into that conversation as well? Go forward?
I think we should just do
Yeah.
what we planned.
Okay, great. Okay, so the motion then would be to list the properties. Actually, I'll just list them through so we can capture it in the motion. So the first property would be number 014-15298 to be listed at $10,000 with a minimum bid at the tax sale. Property number 03222241 for a minimum bid of $2,000. And properties number 3 and 4 would be property number 096303009 and property 090553363 with a minimum bid of the principal only. So, okay. So could I have a mover on that? Counselor Sean Sampson?
Yep.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Counselor Brent Sampson. Okay, so the motion is to send the 4 properties to tax sales at the amounts that we just listed. I'm not going to go through them again. Is there any further discussion on that? Okay, so all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. All right, thanks so much, Don. Next item on the agenda is for, good evening, is for Councillor Brent Sampson regarding the Nova Scotia Mi'kmaq Summer Games sponsorship. So, Councillor Brent?
So we had this letter come through, I believe it was around the end of February. I've since spoken on a couple of occasions to Mr. Isaiah Bernard. If you notice in the second part of the package, there was 4 different sponsorship levels. Just wanted to have a discussion here tonight whether we wanted to choose one of those levels, or at what point, I guess, we wanted to make a decision on this. From what I gathered, they understand that even if the money is not released right away till after budget time, that's okay, as long as they have an idea of what to expect, just so that they can properly make their budget for the games this summer, which are fast approaching, right? So just open up to the floor, if you had any thoughts on these, or where we'd like to go with, if we'd like to pursue this sponsorship, and if so, at what level?
Thanks, Councillor. So any questions or discussion from council on this item?
I would just maybe ask CAO Marchand, like, in the past, when events like this have occurred, I'm confident we've supported them, but it's the level that I'm not sure about. I'm just not sure what we've done in the past in terms of what's reasonable.
Well, I think in the past, I'm trying to remember if we ever did. I think there may have been one year we did. Yeah, I think we were going to, and it got canceled. However, either way, normally we would bring these items up for discussion at budget. I'm not sure how time sensitive it is. Budget deliberations will start rather soon. And these things will be amongst the first things discussed during the budget deliberations. So you'll have a better idea then. I mean, if we can, if you could hold off a decision for a couple of weeks. I don't know.
Will that work, Councillor Sampson? Or?
I get the sense they prefer to have a rough idea sooner, and that's why I brought it back now. I mean, if that's the decision of council, well, that's okay. I think they're just in their planning phase and trying to determine where they'll be at financially, so.
Okay, and I'm sure they're attempting to leverage funds for this, and so understanding the local contribution is gonna be key for them to be able to do that.
I believe so.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Have they gotten commitment from neighboring municipalities?
So generally, there's an ask to the municipality where it's occurring, from what I
okay.
get. Now, I'm not sure if they're looking for smaller commitments outside of that, but I believe in the past, it's depending on which county it's happening, in which municipality. That's where it's one of the main places they go looking for funding.
Okay.
So if we gave them some kind of like minimum, ask or minimum investment, at least it'd be something for them to go by, right, Councillor Johnson? If we gave them some sort of minimum number.
Right. So we could kind of make a decision on a minimum level and still discuss this at budget time if that's.
Yeah, and if
Yeah.
it's higher at budget time, at least,
Yeah,
at least you got a minimum.
and I'm sure that would help in the planning process, I would say.
Yeah. Okay. So are you thinking, would councillors be comfortable with, if I look at the smallest sponsorship level of $5,000, to set that as a minimum towards the games? I mean, what I do know of the summer games is that it draws a big crowd to the community, and the economic spin-off is really, really great, and not to mention the cultural and social connections as well, so.
Right, I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's something to be very proud of that they're coming to
Absolutely.
Richmond County, right? So, I mean, for me, the 5,000 would be an absolute, obviously, it's the minimum, but it would, it's not the number I was thinking about, but I
Right.
just didn't know what was appropriate, and I think it also would be determined based on the rest of our budget discussions. But, in my mind, we'd be at least at the $10,000 level, but.
Yeah, that's where I was going, Deputy Ward,
Yeah.
that's.
Okay.
And if you'd like to
And-
suggest that as
Yeah.
the minimum, for our investment, that's totally fine. I just recognize they didn't have a level below 5, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't wanna
Yeah.
take us
Yeah,
there.
I mean, I do think it's a bigger
Yeah.
conversation
Yeah.
with the CFO and,
Yeah.
the staff has been working really hard to create this budget for us to review, and we wouldn't want to, minimize that work that they're doing but, to me, the minimum would be 10.
Okay. All right, so perhaps the motion then could be to ask staff to include a minimum of a $10,000 investment in the Mi'kmaq Summer Games into the budget draft that they're creating for us. We can't.
And if that number were to change, we can let them know that if we decide during budget deliberations that it would happen to be more, we'll let them know, but at least they can count on this.
Right,
On the minimum,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
I'd be comfortable with that.
okay. So would someone care to make that motion then?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Brent Sampson. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Sean Sampson. So the motion is to ask staff, to request staff to work in a $10,000 PLAMU sponsor level to our budget deliberations for this coming fiscal year. Any further discussion? For the Nova Scotia Mi'kmaq Summer Games, to be specific. So, any further discussion on that? Okay, so all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. Thanks a lot, everyone. There are a couple of community acknowledgements that I wanted to mention, and I invite councillors, if you have any from other areas, please feel free to add them. But the first is that, I think it would be remiss of us not to mention and congratulate CBU on the historic investment that was made by the Government of Nova Scotia, $54 million in investment to that facility to fund innovation, research, and infrastructure. It's the most significant funding announcement in the history of CBU, Cape Breton University. Transformational is the word that's been widely used to describe it. The $54 million investment includes $35 million to support the construction of a Center for Discovery, as well as additional funds for deferred maintenance and planning activities for strategic health initiatives. And as I'm sure councillors will recall, I think our first council meeting after being elected, Mr. Dingwall was here to do a presentation on that Discovery Center. So it's pretty amazing to see this starting to really take shape and get financed in a big way. So just wanted to do a shout out to the folks at CBU and to Mr. Dingwall for that excellent work. Additional community acknowledgement. I heard through the grapevine that the Straight Richmond Pirates are the under-11A provincial hockey champs after a 7-3 win over Bedford last weekend in Truro. The score was sent to me very specifically. Obviously, their hard work and excellent coaching has paid off, and I just wanted to say a congratulations to all the players, coaches, and volunteers, including the parents who have helped along the way, because I know it's a huge effort. And last but not least, I wanted to say congratulations to the Nicholas Denny's players on another successful dinner theater production after a 2-year hiatus due to COVID. The cast and crew put on a great show for a sold-out crowd called As the World Returns. They were a little hard on the politicians at times, but it was still a really great show, and I just wanted to say congratulations to them for a great production. Councillors, did you have any questions or any additions to that item on the agenda?
I do.
Yes.
Just wanted to congratulate Isabella Sampson from Lewsdale, a young artist. She was named the Young Performer of the Year at the 2022 Canadian Folk Music Awards in Charlottetown, end of March, beginning of April. And anybody who's heard her sing can understand why she was awarded that award. So congratulate Isabella. There were also a number of female hockey teams from the Quad Counties that won this weekend as well, but I was just trying to hunt to find which exact divisions there were. So to be continued at the next
Okay.
meeting. I promise to congratulate them directly next meeting.
That's great, thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't hear about those ones, so I'm not as much in the hockey world as you are, so we'll rely on you to dig up that information. So thanks, Deputy Warden. Are there any other additions? Okay, I think before we move on, Yvonne, maybe I'll get you to unmute Alistair because they'll be chiming in soon. So, and yes, I guess in addition to those community acknowledgements, we could maybe send a list, and Dawn, if we could ask staff to just do a little recognition on social media for that kind of thing, I think that would be that'd be really great. Some huge accomplishments from some talented folks in our communities. So, okay, the next item on the agenda then is an Accessibility Advisory Committee update. So just by way of update to council, draft plans have been developed for both the Village of St. Peters and Richmond County. I really have to say what an incredible amount of hard work has gone into this planning process and the development of these plans by the committee members and by the consultants. It's just been phenomenal. The consultants working on the plans for us are Intelligent Futures and Level Playing Field. They're here with us this evening to give us a little update on some of the details of the plan. And Alistair, I'm not sure if you can hear us.
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear there.
Great, okay, so maybe we will just hand it over to you. We've got you dialed up on our Zoom here, and I think you should be able to share your screen as well, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm unable to share my screen just quite yet. So
Okay.
now I can. Perfect, thank you.
No problem. So over to you.
Thank you, and thank you everybody for taking the time to listen to us this evening. And before I jump in, can you see my screen there?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So just good evening and thank you. And as Amanda was just mentioning there, we're just going to give a brief overview of the key components of the accessibility plan. This plan has been developed over the past 3 months, and we are pleased to present it to you this evening. To introduce ourselves, I am Alistair. I'm with Intelligent Futures firm based out of Calgary, and we're a group of versatile problem solvers with our core purpose of finding better ways of living together. To realize this purpose, we put people at the center of the change process to improve the lives of the folks of communities where we work. As part of that, we have developed this accessibility plan. I'm also joined this evening with Kristen and Darby from Level Playing Field. So with that, I'm just going to hand it over to them to introduce themselves.
Thank you, Alistair. Good evening, everyone. My name is Darby Young. I'm the founder of Level Playing Field. We are extremely excited to be part of this project. Level Playing Field is an accessibility firm that strives to bring in lived experience into the project to make sure that we can remove barriers for all individuals, not just persons with disabilities, but everyone, as we strive to make communities more accessible and inclusive and safe and warm and friendly for everyone. We've been around, we are based in Calgary, but we've been around since 2015, and we are coast to coast using the lived experience aspects in removing those barriers. Here, I'll pass it over to Kristen.
Hello, everyone. As Darby said, I'm Kristen Westlake. I've been working on this accessibility plan as the lead accessibility strategist with Level Playing Field. We're very excited to be presenting this to you guys. It's been a lot of hard work on everybody's part, and we're really excited to see it move forward. So today we're going to just kind of give you guys a bit of an introduction on the plan, talk a little bit about accessibility in Nova Scotia, our planning process, and our plan overview. So Intelligent Futures and Level Playing Field have been working with the municipality and the AAC since January of 2022 to create this accessibility plan. The accessibility plan will provide strategic direction to guide accessibility initiatives to make the municipality accessible by 2030. So just a little bit about accessibility in Nova Scotia. So according to the Canadian Survey on Disability from 2017 by Statistics Canada, 30% of Nova Scotians aged 15 years and older identify as having at least one disability, which is just under 230,000 Nova Scotians. In addition, 20% of the province's residents are 65 years of age or older, and in Richmond, 27.7% of the country, or the county, is 65 or older. So Nova Scotia's Accessibility Act was implemented in 2017. Nova Scotia is the third province to implement an Accessibility Act. And the goal of the act is to prevent and remove barriers that restrict people with disabilities from fully participating in society. So some municipal implications that this has. The municipality is required to have a publicly available accessibility plan. They're required to update the accessibility plan every 3 years to be in line with the provincial changes, and the goal is to be fully accessible by 2030. So the planning process from January 2022 to April 2022, very quickly, Intelligent Futures and Level Playing Field investigated local accessibility by conducting site assessments, existing practice research, policy investigations, public engagement, AAC collaboration, and staff and committee workshops. So as part of the site assessment, Level Playing Field reviewed the current accessibility of the municipality of Richmond County and the village of St. Peters. The work began with a desktop exercise to determine what locations to visit and experience virtually. We also spoke with many members of the AAC to determine what locations we should be looking at. We viewed the potential locations on Google Street View as well as got many images. from the AAC to take a look. We reviewed the county and village websites and reviewed Parks Canada information. We assessed the accessibility and accessing relevant information on the above websites. We reviewed new provincial legislation on accessibility and other Nova Scotia communities' accessibility strategies. So the areas we looked at were Arisat, Louisville, La Roduse, Evanston, Ville-Majam, and the village of St. Peter. And some of the things we were looking at were, so we looked at site access, including accessible parking spaces and curb cuts to entrances. We looked at sidewalks, walking and bicycle trails, parks, libraries, recreation centers, and community centers, as well as municipal and village buildings, just to name a few. And Alistair, I'll pass it on to you.
Thanks so much, Kristen. So in addition to those site assessments, as on the screen here, we did extensive existing practice research to see what best practice is in accessibility currently, as well as looked at all local and provincial policy documents to understand where this will align. We conducted public engagement for 2.5, almost 3 weeks with members of the county. There was significant collaboration with the AAC throughout this process, and there was a series of staff and committee workshops which have shaped these plans. So jumping into overviewing the plan, which you should have all seen, which should be included in the package there. The plan itself has 4 main components: the vision and statement of commitment, the governance structure and how this plan will be enacted over the coming years. There are 5 focus areas and 14 short-term actions. So the vision outlined in the plan states that the County of Richmond is inclusive and provides meaningful access for all, regardless of ability or age. As a community, we will promote awareness, remove barriers, and put lived experience at the forefront of future decisions. When looking at the governance structure, this is the requirement for continued improvement of overall accessibility within the municipality and how it will be enacted in the coming years. So the main components outline that the municipality will develop action plans and update the priorities every 3 years as mandated by the Nova Scotian Accessibility Act, have continued guidance and provided by the Accessibility Advisory Committee, update the plan and actions as provincial legislation changes, and we have suggested partnering with the village and neighboring communities to onboard or designate an accessibility coordinator to implement this plan. When looking at the focus areas, as mentioned, there are 5 different focus areas. Each focus area has a commitment, which is the commitment by the municipality for that focus area, a starting point, so what it is looking like right now, which includes the achievements and barriers, and then also policies to be enacted. So when going through the focus areas, the first being goods and services, and the commitment being that all staff and service providers supply and advocate for accessible goods and services in the municipality of the County of Richmond, and continue to identify and improve barriers of the use of these local services. As information and communication, everyone can meaningfully access, receive, understand, and use information provided by the municipality of the County of Richmond and their partners, regardless of ability or technology availability. Looking at transportation, everyone in the municipality of the County of Richmond is able to get where they need to go through equitable transportation access. For employment, the municipality of the County of Richmond and its partners create awareness, and advocate for employment opportunities that are accessible to people of all abilities, including those with disabilities. And finally, the built environment, which states that all infrastructure, buildings, streets, sidewalks, and shared spaces in the municipality of the County of Richmond are safe, maintained, and provide meaningful access to all. When jumping into the actions, there are 14 short-term actions proposed in the plan for enacting in the next 3 years. Actions included in this plan were included if they are in line with provincial policies and requirements, an action that is within the control of the municipality, and something that is achievable in the next 3 years, or if it will make sizable difference in the future. So to go through these 14 actions, first being that it's a review of the maintenance procedures for gravel and snow removal for all sidewalks in the county, modifying hiring, funding, evaluation, and procurement policies and procedures to prioritize persons with disabilities, advocating for accessibility improvements to widen the paving of shoulders and create an improved winter maintenance procedure, partnering with the village to create a business survey to understand and create a record of which businesses are accessible, updating committee and council communications policies and procedures to provide accessible resources for meetings and engagements, partnering with the village to review current accessibility standards at key facilities and conducting Rick Hansen certifications for municipal buildings, updating and standardizing all county signage with Braille, tactile, and other design elements, review of current recreational programming to identify and propose accessible recreational program options, partnering with the village to review current accessibility standards at key facilities and conduct Rick Hansen review of all the pedestrian road crossing locations to advocate for well-painted locations with visual and audible cues, partnering with the village to offer training and professional development for staff, commission, and local businesses for accessibility, including accessible customer service, information and communications, and design standards, attracting more people with lived experience to the Accessibility Advisory Committee, advocating for and support accessible trail and pedestrian crossing developments to ensure the network is safe and accessible for all users, review and revise emergency management planning to include accessibility, and finally, updating the municipal website to an accessible standard. So with that, we are wrapping up this process that, as Kristen had mentioned, has been a quick process, but has had a lot of really meaningful and important inputs throughout. The next step is going to the Accessibility Advisory Committee for approval and endorsement, and then from there it will be coming back, I believe, at your next council meeting for full council approval. So with that, I will open it up if there are any questions, and just thank you all again for taking the time to chat this evening.
Thank you so much, Alistair, Kristen, and Darby. That's a really great overview of in a short period of time of a whole lot of work. So is there any questions from council for the team at Intelligent Futures and Level Playing Field? Yeah, go ahead, Deputy Ward.
I don't have any right now, but
Okay.
I mean, I just saw that you sent them, the detailed plans were just
Yes.
emailed to us, so we haven't had a chance to review those. I'm guessing Alistair or the folks at Level Playing Field, if we did have questions between now and the regular council meeting, because I understand we're going to be looking to proceed with this at the regular council, I'm assuming you're okay if we email you with any questions that we may have?
Yeah, or
Sure.
you could
Yeah.
run them through myself
Or
or
run them.
Laurier.
We,
Okay, whatever, yeah.
There is time over the coming months or the coming months, coming
Couple
weeks,
weeks.
sorry, to address any questions that arise.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
So our original timing, we had hoped that our accessibility committee would be able to make a recommendation for council to approve the plan at the last meeting, but we had some adjustments, and so we're meeting, we have a scheduled meeting for April 21st, which will still be before our next council meeting, I think, is it?
25th is our next meeting.
25th,
Our
yeah.
regular
So
meeting, yeah.
we're a couple of days before our next council meeting, so we'll hopefully at that time get the recommendation from the AAC for council to approve. And then it'll be up to us to do that on our regular meeting, so. Yeah. Okay, so no other questions? Okay, great. Great.
It's
Well,
exciting. Looks like some good work
it is,
was done there.
It is
Yeah.
pretty exciting. It's been a journey and a half. So thank you so much, Alistair and Kristen and Darby, for joining us this evening and for all of your work on the project. It's much appreciated. And just a huge shout out to the Accessibility Advisory Committee as well, because wow, it was a pile of work. So thank you very much for joining and helping to provide this update for council this evening. Much appreciated.
Great. Thank you guys so much, and I hope you all have a wonderful evening.
Okay.
You too.
Thank you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Okay, so then the next item on the agenda is also related to our Accessibility Advisory Committee. Esther McDonnell from the St. Peter's Village Commission has requested to join the committee. She's not staff there, she's a village commissioner, and so as a result, we would need a motion of council to approve Esther to join the Accessibility Advisory Committee. So do folks have questions about that, or could I get a motion to make that?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Councillor Brent Sampson. Could I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Councillor Sean Sampson. Okay, so the motion is to appoint Esther McDonnell, Village Commissioner, to the Accessibility Advisory Committee. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. Right, so the next item on the agenda is the Cape Breton Food Hub regarding their funding requests. So they have submitted a request for funding in a letter to council. You'll see that under correspondence. I believe it was a $10,000 amount, and budget, et cetera, was included. Normally, I think at this stage, we would refer this type of request to budget. So unless councillors have any kind of other discussion they wanted to add on it. Okay, so we'll ask Dawn if you could maybe consider that in the budget deliberations as well, so. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the Straight Richmond Community Health Board, Annette Kehoe, regarding the Universal Healthy School Food Program, and Annette has kindly provided information in a letter and in a presentation that she sent to us regarding the Universal Healthy School Food Program. Sorry, it's a mouthful. And essentially, she outlined that the Straight Richmond Community Health Board is an official endorser of the National Coalition for Healthy School Food, and they've invited us to join them in calling for a Universal Healthy School Food Program. Students need access to good food to fuel their minds and bodies, but many students do come to school without full bellies for a variety of reasons, from long commutes to early morning practices, not being hungry when they wake up, busy routines in the morning, household food insecurity, of course, would be a contributor there as well. It struck me in Annette's correspondence, and I just want to recognize Annette's here in the gallery with us today, so I'm sure if we have any pressing questions, she can slide in there and answer them for us, but it really surprised me that Canada is the only G7 country without a national school food program. I was pretty shocked to read that. So anyways, she further outlined that good nutrition impacts children's health and well-being and learning. If children are not adequately nourished during childhood, the impact can really last a lifetime. Hunger in childhood has been shown to have long-term adverse consequences for health. So I guess at this point, the Community Health Board would be seeking a motion from council to support the ongoing efforts of the Coalition for Healthy School Food to advocate for a universal healthy school food program based on the shared belief that all children and youth should have daily access to healthy food at school. So any questions on that or discussion from council? Okay, quiet.
That is surprising, though, that Canada is, surprising and discouraging, to be honest, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, this will be one of the steps to make that not be the reality
Yeah.
any longer.
Right.
So I think we, as a council, should be
Yeah.
putting our support behind
Okay.
the project, for sure.
Okay, so would someone care to make a motion then to support the ongoing efforts?
I'll make
Councillor
that
Sean
motion, yeah.
Sampson? Could I have a seconder on that?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Brent Sampson. So the motion is to support the ongoing efforts of the Coalition for Healthy School Food to advocate for a universal healthy school food program based on the shared belief that all children and youth should have daily access to healthy food at school. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried, and just thank you again, Annette.
On behalf of the Community Health Board, I want to thank you guys for helping us endorse that.
Absolutely. We'll send you some official correspondence. Okay. Great, thank you. So the next item on our agenda is an update from the Chief Financial Officer, Jason Martell, regarding a grant request from the River Bourgeois Community Services Society for a Type 4 Regional Health and General Grant in the amount of $10,000. And there was a note included from the CAO, just mentioning that our option here, because we do not have an approved budget, would be to defer it to a later committee of the whole meeting. And so if councillors are okay with that, I think we can go ahead and defer that item. Okay.
Yeah, until we've decided what we're doing with grants.
Yeah. Great. Okay, and maybe I'll send a quick little follow-up note to Sharon, though, to let her know that the matter was discussed and that we'll consider it once the budget is approved. Okay. Great. So the next item on the agenda is the review of checks issued. Were there any questions for staff on the checks listed for the month of March 2022? Okay. Hearing none, I'll move us on. So next is a review of action items from March 7th, 2022, which was our last committee of the whole meeting. Any questions on that or updates?
I love all the completes.
I love to see all the completes. I'm not going to lie, that made me extremely happy. And now
Wasn't too much red ink.
No.
the pressure's on for the end of the month, though. I'm feeling it. It's a big list.
We've got a few pending ones we need to deal with there,
Yes.
for sure.
Yeah, okay. That's great. So if there's no questions, I'll move us on to the items added to the agenda, which I believe was the letter from the municipality of Chester regarding property tax. So this item has been, I guess, brought up as a note of concern since the provincial budget was passed. I don't know, it feels like a long time ago, but I think it was probably only last week. Anyway, the provincial budget this year included a 5% deed transfer tax and a $2 per $100 of assessment property tax for non-residential properties in Nova Scotia. So there's a whole set of criteria around it, but these would include, in a lot of cases, seasonal properties. And of course, we know that Richmond County has all kinds of those. You know, when I first saw the information come out, I definitely was concerned because property tax has always been the purview and the revenue source of municipalities. And to see the province dipping their oar in these waters is really concerning to me. And I think the way that it was articulated in the letter from the municipality of Chester was extremely well put. They cited 5 specific concerns. First of all, that the annual $2 per $100 of assessment is exorbitant. You know, it's by far in most municipalities the single largest property tax increase ever levied for communities. The province is encroaching into the municipal tax base with this form of direct provincial property taxation. And what that could potentially mean for us is, you know, residents really, at the end of the day, they don't care who is taxing them. What they care about is how much they're being taxed for property taxes. And you know, municipalities are going to wear this regardless of where the bill comes from. I think it's also going to it's going to be harmful to us in terms of our ability to potentially have to, you know, increase our own tax rate if we came to that, right? And we know we're facing rising costs, so I'm really concerned about that piece as well. You know, I think the initiative was intended to address housing supply, from what I understand. I don't think they're going to hit their target here because, you know, some of these properties, as they're selling, they're often in very rural areas. You know, people's ability to pay these skyrocketing assessment prices is not going to be increasing. There's no indication that these funds would be coming back to municipalities where the problem is occurring. Frankly, you know, municipal. I guess I've always considered housing, it's a provincial responsibility, but it's really a municipal problem, right? We are the ones who hear about it. You know, the council in Chester also is not anticipating that the properties impacted would be aligned with the attainable housing goals. they're not going to be relevant to trying to resolve the housing crisis, especially in rural areas, I believe. And then, of course, they raise the concern about seasonal ownership, seasonal property ownership by non-residents. I mean, how many people do we know who are not full-time residents of Richmond County who contribute so greatly to our communities, either through causes or, you know, jumping in as volunteers in the summer, or, you know, et cetera, the list goes on. So I really found that they were smart in how they identified the specific reasons that this tax is going to be causing a problem. I'm also very concerned the fact that municipalities were not consulted in advance of this. So this, you know, although it was part of the platform, I know that NSFM had made several overtures to try to get more information about it, but it really was not forthcoming until the budget came down. And what's also not clear right now is the detail of how it will be implemented. What, you know, right now the funds look like they're going to general revenue. How is that going to solve the housing crisis in rural Nova Scotia, is my question. Locally here, you know, I've heard from several realtors and other folks. You know, Dr. Bob Martell emailed. We've got some correspondence from Ralph Bowman, all expressing these same concerns that although well-intended, there are going to be some unintended consequences that municipalities in particular are going to have to deal with. And when we look when we look at a company such as the Bowman Group, or, you know, with the Friends United Center and what it will mean for their business model, you know, it's really, really concerning. And it's putting some of these, you know, some of these pillars, I think, of our, you know, of our communities at risk. So I guess I'd like to hear from council on your thoughts, if you've had much time to kind of think about it, if you're interested in this council sending some communication to the province, or any kind of next steps that you think might be warranted.
No, I think Margaret, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think similar to what Chester did, I think we should, again, like you said, the province did not ask our municipality, or does it look like any municipality for their insight. So like Chester, I think we should send our own insight and our own concerns as a you know, a county and as a municipality, a concerned municipality. I think we should send a letter as well.
Yeah, I agreed with a lot of the comments, of course, that Warden Weber had as well. You know, like you, one of my biggest concerns when I heard all of it was NSFM hadn't said anything to us. I mean, we get regular updates from them on many different topics, and this was, you know, it seemed to really hit them as well, that they had not been consulted. And I think, you know, that's our tool to work with the government to come up with solutions, perhaps for housing. And you know, the other thing that concerned me that I'd like to see added to our letter of concern is something, you know, in terms of, you know, how does this work in the real world? So how does this affect our, you know, our revenue? You know, we would assume that it'll be listed on our tax bill. So then we're in charge of the collection piece. And what if someone pays part of their bill? Does that money go to the province? You know, are we going to hold the receivable for the province for this money, or is it going to go directly to them? I think there are a lot of questions that they haven't considered. And again, I can appreciate that in a lot of cases when budgets happen, they haven't necessarily thought of all the parts. But those are some that came to my mind. Certainly the lack of consideration, but also just logistically, how would this even work?
So an NSFM held a Cape Breton gathering on Friday afternoon, and you can imagine this was on the table for discussion. And what they've been able to find out is that the province intends to bill this directly, so municipalities would not be. So I mean, that
should
to
be
me
interesting.
raises a whole pile of other questions, you know, in terms of, okay, now are we going to create a new department to handle all of that building, and how is that going to work? Because are we, you know, is there really a business case here for this? Or are we going to be spending more money
Then we're going to make.
than we're going to make, right? So, so I think you're right about the real world considerations, and the fact is that has come to us through NSFM. We don't really have any written correspondence on it, right? So, so with council's, I guess, approval, I would consider drafting a letter for everybody to review and then send on, and I, you know, would probably want to consult with members of our business community as well on their main concerns. What I've been hearing is that they're, you know, although both are concerning, the deed transfer tax and the property tax, they're more concerned about the ongoing property tax piece.
I've heard the same.
Yeah, okay. So would you like to state that in a motion then for the warden to draft a letter to send to the province regarding this matter, outlining our concerns? Okay, could I get someone to do that?
I would move.
Thank you. Deputy Warden?
Move that the warden draft a letter to the premier, and of course, we should include our local MLA and of course, the Minister of Finance and Municipal Affairs and Housing, and
Cast of thousands.
yeah, probably, yeah, and probably the president of NSFM. Same people that Warden Weber addressed his letter to, so of concern with the new property tax, and I think deed transfer tax as well. We should discuss both of those in our letter of concern.
Okay. Okay. Could I have a seconder on that motion? Councillor Sean Sampson? I don't know who won the race
It's
there,
all
but
good.
anyway, we're
It's all
gonna
good.
go in this direction this time. Okay, so the motion is for the warden to prepare a letter to send to the province, addressed to the premier, the Minister of Municipal Affairs, our local MLA, and the President of NSFM, to express our concerns regarding the new property tax and deed transfer tax. Okay. Perfect. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. All right, so we're nearing the end of our agenda. So we have a 15-minute question period. So there is a number to call, and it should be free now because, yeah, we've freed it up from the presenters. So for folks who might be watching on the live stream, the number to call is 902-226-9885. That's 902-226-9885. And just to make sure that everyone is clear, the question period this evening is 15 minutes maximum in length. It does not need to be related to items on the agenda, but you do need to have a question for council and not sort of a statement kind of thing. So we want to be able to answer you. So I'll just open it up to questions by the phone, but also from the gallery here. We have some faces in the gallery, so.
I've got some questions.
Sure, come on up. And we'll just get you to state your name and just, so we'll have that, although I know who you are. No, I think he's got it.
This little mic right there is the one for you.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, in case anyone doesn't know me, Tom Sampson, resident of District 3. Good. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I had a few questions. My first question is pertaining to declaring a conflict, and so I'm trying to figure out kind of how this goes about. And so on the December 6th, 2021 Committee of the Whole meeting, we had Councillor Digdon declare a conflict before a motion was made. And it was pertaining to an in-camera session. And then on the 20th of 2021, the regular council meeting, we had a motion so moved by Deputy Warden, seconded by Councillor Sean Sampson, that Council accept the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole, and that Warden Mumliket and Councillor Sean Sampson move forward with, and so it was just a continuation of that same motion. And in that particular circumstance, as I watched the video footage, Councillor Digdon did not declare a conflict on that. He actually didn't do anything, which I thought was a nay vote, but it was recorded as a yes vote. And so he did not declare a conflict, and I was trying to figure out what the logic would be for that.
Yeah, so anytime a councillor does not cast a vote, it is considered a nay vote. We've been through that with the rules of order. So if there's a correction we need to make in our minutes, Tommy, then, and was that the December 21st one you said?
That's the December 20th, the
20th,
regular
okay.
council.
So maybe we could ask Dawn and Yvonne to kind of look at that and just review if that needed to be recorded as a nay.
And so then, I guess my follow-up question would be, in that process of declaring a conflict, does a councillor sitting on council actually have to say, I'm declaring a conflict on whatever the topic is, and the reason I'm asking that question is in the March 28th special meeting, I noticed Deputy Warden waited, so she was asked to read a motion. You waited for that, because I think you were expecting a declaration of conflict to be made. And then on two separate occasions, throughout the next, let's say, 3 to 4 minutes, the warden prompted Councillor Digdon to declare a conflict. And as I watched that meeting several times, I didn't actually hear Councillor Digdon declare a conflict. I just know that his camera went off, so I'm not even sure if he left the meeting or if he didn't. But then it was noted that he did declare a conflict. And so I'm just trying to figure out, in that sense, what constitutes declaring a conflict. Because it is concerning for me as a resident in this county. So I've heard, what I did hear, at least what I interpreted, was, I guess so, I don't know why I was brought into regular session if I was still, and then it stops. And then Madam Warden, you said, well, we finished our in-camera session and we just came back to the public. And so now you have an opportunity to declare a conflict before the motion. And then he shut his camera off or logged off, I'm not sure, because we don't get to see that, right? So I'm just trying to figure out, with specific reference to conflict of interest, what is expected? I know the MJ is pretty clear on it, but is there a set protocol in terms of what this council expects for declaring a conflict of interest?
So I do recall the March 28th meeting, and so, you know, anything that's discussed in camera, we
Yeah.
can't bring out,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so what, you know, when conflicts are declared in and out of camera,
Yeah.
that's, you know, that kind of, I guess, would partially determine why we would have expected Councillor Digdon to declare a conflict in a public meeting, when we were discussing a matter that was pertaining to him. In terms of what, you know, how the declaration is made,
Yeah.
I would just say that the councillor needs to declare it.
So in that meeting,
Yeah.
on the 28th, he didn't declare a conflict, and I'm wondering why.
He left the meeting.
Well,
did
he
not.
didn't declare a conflict, but then you had noted that he did declare a conflict. And unless there's something edited in that video, which I'm assuming it wasn't because it was a
No.
live stream,
Yeah, we can't edit.
I didn't actually hear him declare a conflict. I know his camera went down, so I don't know if that means he left the meeting or if he just shut off his camera.
Right.
But he didn't actually declare a conflict on something, you know, that I'm assuming he clearly should have declared a conflict. And I think personally, and I'm not as well versed in the protocol as you guys are, but I think you went out of your way to provide every opportunity for that, and I still didn't hear it.
So if the words weren't actually said, and I will have to go back and watch it, I really will.
Oh, no, there's
but-
no if. They
Yeah, no,
definitely
no,
weren't.
but what I'm saying is that we obviously interpreted the camera going off as the declaration of conflict, and maybe that is something we need to be more specific about in future.
So
Yeah,
it-
I mean, typically when the camera goes off,
Yeah.
that's the same as somebody leaving the room,
meeting,
right? So we just
Yeah.
did some municipal training, like,
Okay.
and basically and again, that's after this meeting, but the rules are that to be part of the meeting, the
Yeah.
public needs to be able to physically see you and
Okay.
hear you, to know that it is you.
Okay.
So when your camera is off,
Yeah.
whether you're whatever, you're then not in the meeting.
Right.
So is that considered a declaration of conflict?
I don't, no, I'm just saying,
feel
I'm not
like-
saying that that's a declaration
Yeah.
of conflict.
Considering left the meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that a declaration of conflict, or is that something that you guys could look into?
It's probably something we need to look into,
Yeah.
because I feel like if you're going to declare a conflict, you need to specifically
Say the
state that you're
words.
declaring a conflict.
Okay,
And it may have just been that it was in our minds, and when the camera went off, it is how we interpreted it.
okay,
And so we definitely need to clarify that.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That,
The only,
I
yeah,
think
the
the
only
w-
other thing with that is, like,
Yeah.
we have to do it ourselves anyway.
Yes.
So whether Councillor Digdon did or not, we can't force him to.
No, that's right.
That's right.
We're responsible to declare it ourselves.
We're each responsible
according
for
to the
ourselves.
Municipal Government Act.
Correct.
Yes.
So is there any, in the event that a councillor doesn't declare, because like I said, I really felt like you created the environment for it, and it wasn't done, is there any recourse on that, or?
I
I
think there's
mean-
a section in MGA that speaks about voidable proceedings, you know what I mean? Like, so if he would have voted on something that he
Yeah.
didn't declare a conflict on, we can't, like Councillor Brent Sampson said, I don't think we can force him to declare that conflict.
No.
It's up to him. If he doesn't, then I think there's a stipulation in MGA, correct me if I'm wrong, Don, but I think there's section 299 of the MGA that states voidable proceedings to the point where if we felt Councillor Digdon voted on something he shouldn't have, we have a period of time where we can challenge that situation.
Okay. Is there anything beyond that? So he's expected to declare, or whoever the counselor is, would be
Yeah,
expected to
anytime,
declare
yeah.
anytime there's a conflict,
Yeah.
if that's part of
Yeah.
the
And if my mem-
expectations.
Yeah, and if my memory serves me right, I don't think he actually said the words, I'm declaring a conflict, but he said, I'm shutting my camera off. Text me when I can come back to the meeting, right? So, yeah.
He didn't say that during the public meeting.
Okay, it may have been.
And
Yeah,
then-
I
and
feel
you
like
guys
there was
can-
I feel like there was some confusion because because when we were in camera, he was not, his camera wasn't off, he was
Off.
gone.
Yeah, I
Right.
assume that.
Right,
yeah.
and so we brought him back into the meeting, and
Right.
the impression I got from his reaction was that he felt we had already made the motion, and we were bringing him back in
After the
to
motion.
adjourn the meeting.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's
Because he
gotta
did
be
seem
done.
to be, I agree, like a bit confused,
Yeah.
like,
Right.
why was he there if he needed to declare a conflict?
Okay.
That was my interpretation.
Yeah, so
Probably one
we
of
had
those
to come
things
back
never
to a
would've
public
occurred
meeting
Okay.
to make the
In
motion.
person, that's
Yeah.
right.
That was
Yeah.
made in camera, and he was
Okay,
confused.
I appreciate, I'm just
Yeah.
looking for.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
think,
so you're right, Deputy Warden, he was confused when he came back to a public meeting.
yeah,
We had to put that motion forward that was discussed in camera, so we had to bring him back, and he was expected again to declare a
Yeah.
conflict. And like you said, he was like
Yeah, we could have just
Right.
waited to bring him back till after we did
Right.
the motion.
Right.
the problem is
didn't.
then the declaration of conflict is not in public.
Agreed.
Because it would have been in camera.
Right.
Right.
So, and this is truly,
It's-
it is part of the challenge of trying to do
Navigating it.
these things in a virtual setting. I think Counselor Sampson
Yeah, I
said
think
it
if it had been in
well,
here, he
right?
probably would have figured out what
it
was
would have,
going
Yeah.
on.
Okay.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, it's a fair point, and we do need to, I think, be more specific on what constitutes the declaration of a conflict, and it needs to be the words stated and not
Yeah.
just the camera go off, although hopefully we're getting away from the camera
I
on the
appreciate,
Zoom.
I appreciate that,
Yeah.
very much so.
Did you have another question?
I actually, yeah, I had two more, actually. My second question relates to the transparency slash, so in specific reference to the media releases. So as a resident, I'm wondering why we're not more consistent with the press releases coming out of here. So we came out with a press release, like the most recent one that I remember is in relation to the announcement of a CAO, so Don announcing a retirement. And then we have council making a motion on the 28th about Councillor Digdon and a breach of the code of conduct. And I'm just wondering why, in that circumstance, we didn't have a press release. Like, why wouldn't we, as a county, want to get out in front of and have whatever information you guys had to work with that you're able to release, you know, given that it was in camera, as opposed to it come out on the reporter or whatever, and that's not knocking any media outlet, but so that this council can get out in front of that narrative. So I'm just wondering why, or if that's just an oversight, and if it's
Yeah.
something that,
I think it's a couple of things. So number one is we don't have a consistent communications plan, although I know Yvonne and I took a real stab at that in the summer. We're hoping that through our strategic planning that will be addressed, but we don't have a consistent system. And what I did in that case, I can tell you, is I took the motions and put them together because they were over 2 meetings.
Yeah.
And I forwarded those motions to the media directly. And so
Okay.
they would have the accurate information, because of course there were questions coming in. And so that's how I handled that. But
Okay.
in terms of consistency, Tommy, what we need to do is resource a communications plan for the county, period.
to,
Yeah.
okay. And my third question, and I appreciate your guys' patience with
No, go ahead.
this process. It's my first time in a live meeting, and it's actually nice to be around adults. So my third question pertains to integrity and professionalism in council and as a councillor. So I believe I read, and I think I may even have heard this statement, the council has stated that it will hold each other accountable in office, and the council understands that the actions of one counselor reflects on all of council. And oftentimes, as is the case in this particular instance, it impacts residents through the county, young and old, male, female, it doesn't really matter. And while I can appreciate that this council was placed in a really difficult position over the last 4 to 5 months, I'm trying to imagine a scenario where we move forward with, let's say, advisory committees, advisory organizations where community members from Richmond County are volunteering to work with committees where there are councillors sitting in those committees. And then more specifically, I'm trying to imagine a circumstance where a committee would involve Councillor Dignan, and that committee would have females sitting at the table. And how do we move forward? And so, while I'm not a female, I am a dad, and I do have a daughter. And so I'm trying to reconcile all this in my head. And while I understand and I totally respect that you guys cannot discuss stuff that was discussed in camera, I was fully expecting, as a resident of Richmond County, to hear an apology, a public apology from the council on behalf of council to the residents, because the action of one councillor, unfortunately, is somehow tied to all of council. And while I completely acknowledge that no one else here was involved in that, sometimes we get painted with that same brush. And so I was hoping and praying in some reality that there would be a public acknowledgement of that, either from the council or a public apology from Councillor Dignan. And to say that I was disappointed with the comment on an interview that says the committee/council felt I was in breach. Not I was in breach, felt I was in breach. And the mix-up seems to be with council mixing up the work life with my life as a councillor or something along those lines. And so I'm asking my questions, can this council be confident that there are no more breaches or have not been more breaches? And I'm here to tell you, and like I said, I appreciate your patience in indulging, trying to wrap my head around this, knowing that there's a structure, for questions.
So
But
I'm
I
just
would
trying
like-
to understand what your question is.
Well, my question is going to be this. So what if this council learns tonight, right now, that this same councillor in March of 2021 reaches out to a resident of Richmond County and talks about the lack of professionalism of the one staff member that this council has, so CAO Don Marchand, references it in a text, and then goes as far as to say, I'm going to embarrass him if he doesn't learn to stand up properly during O Canada.
Right, so I'm not gonna pretend I have a crystal ball.
Okay.
If there's a breach that needs to be reported, Tommy, I'm gonna just suggest that you do that.
Okay, and so what is the process for that? Because I have it right here on my
Yeah,
phone.
so the process would be to, I suppose, reach out to me as a warden, and we can, if you wanna send me information,
I can.
then you're welcome to do that. But anytime there's a breach to the code of conduct, it's the responsibility of council to address it, exactly, so,
Okay, I appreciate it.
okay.
I appreciate the time.
And, thanks for your questions. I do want to also mention that, just in trying to help the public understand council's kind of role in this and the process that we have, I did also do an interview with Tell Ill with Becky, to try to.
I watched it.
Okay,
I
good.
did.
It's just to try to give some clarity on, because people have asked the question, how can a council investigate itself? But at the end of the day, we're an independent body, and
Yeah.
so that is the procedure, right? And
I-
there's a gap at the provincial level that
There's
we
a
are
huge gap.
hoping is going to be addressed really quick, really soon.
Yeah,
I'm
there's
totally
a huge gap, and
Yeah.
I had posted on social media asking some questions about things, and there's a situation similar to, a breach in the code of conduct in Kentville, and
It happens all over the
very
province.
different interpretation, but it involves different variables and all
Yeah.
of that stuff, right?
Yeah, it
So-
happens all over the province, and the province, I think, recognizes that, but it's just, it just never can happen quickly enough with these kinds of things, right, so.
Yeah, I know as a parent and as a dad, and I'm surprised this room isn't filled right now with people from all over the county expressing complete and total.
Well, certainly, we've heard from lots of folks on the issue, and glad you could bring the questions forward. I am kind of looking at our clock a little and recognizing there's some other folks. Is there anybody else?
Yep, and I'm gonna step away. I had
Okay.
lots, but I'm gonna
Okay.
step away. Thank you.
You know where to find us too, right?
Yes.
So, okay, perfect. Does anybody else have questions? Come on. Yeah. And we'll just get you to say your name, please, and thank you.
My name is Jessica Webb.
Okay.
So I have a couple questions for council regarding the breach. So I'm just wondering why, number one, why it took so long for the investigation to be done. If it was found in November and you just made a decision recently, it's quite a long time period to make a decision and investigate. Also, was there any certain process you followed in your investigation? Any specific steps that you took? Why was it only Warden and Councillor Sean Sampson that did the investigation? Why was Brent and Melanie not involved?
So in terms of the timeline, Jessica, what I can tell you is that there's some confidential information, I guess, that I can't really share about that. I will tell you there was a storm factor at one point as well.
There was a COVID factor.
And a COVID factor. But in terms of some of the other circumstances there, I can't really speak to that because I think it would kind of betray the confidence of the public, member of the public who had been speaking with me. And although I know there's much information out there in the media, I think, as a council, we still have a responsibility to her. So I just want to respect that. So I can't really say too much other than that. The other question you had was?
Yeah, are you able to speak on why it was?
Just us?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the family member in question, I have a relationship with, she knows me well. So she brought it to my attention. I, within 5 minutes, brought it to Warden Marburkett's attention. We did discuss it amongst ourselves. We can't talk too much about in-camera stuff, but very much like the Point Upper Fire Department situation, we decided that we would send so many people to Point Upper to talk about a fire department contract. We pretty much did the same here. We said, the person in question reached out to Sean. He reached out to the warden, and we're going to agree to investigate ourselves, the both of us, and bring back to council what we find out.
Yeah.
So that's.
It was a decision of council, though, was the point, was to appoint the two of us to
Yeah.
it was like almost to take the lead on it, but
Right.
all the information came back.
Right, important to note, like, at every stage
Yeah.
of all of the parts, the entire council, of course, with the exception of Councillor Digdon, were made aware of all of the things that were happening. I think that is really important to note that. I mean, it's difficult to coordinate times to meet people together, so if you have 5 councillors, it could also be a little overwhelming and maybe a bit intimidating as well for someone to come forward with an issue if they know they're gonna meet, like, 4 other people, or it could be a bit. So we kind of considered all of those pieces when deciding on who would proceed.
Another question I have is, why was Councillor Digdon not put on leave as soon as the investigation began?
So councillors are not employees of the municipality, and that is the issue that we're running into. We don't have the authority or the power to place any one of each other on any kind of, unpaid kind of leave, whatever. We can't, it wouldn't have been in good conscience for us to issue any kind of corrective action as per our code of conduct policy without doing the investigation first. It would sort of be like presuming someone guilty before you have even, really gotten the information. And so that really, I can tell you point blank, that is why. We had a responsibility to both the constituent who reported the matter and to Councillor Digdon to make sure that we, spoke to them both and collected information from both. And once that was done, then we were able to make our decision. But honestly, it's, there are really specific limits on what we as a council can do. And no step have we taken without getting both advice from municipal affairs and legal advice. So I've had, all kinds of questions come through. I have a summary, Jessica, that because you're the chair of the recreation committee?
I was.
You were?
I stepped down
Okay.
after.
Okay. If you're interested, I can send you some of that process information with the
please.
statutes and stuff. And I think that might help to clarify, because it does include some of the the legal sort of things that we're bound by.
Yep.
And I think that would be maybe helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you. All right, are there any other questions? Okay, so hearing none and the phone is not ringing, I don't think we have anything, do we? Yeah, we do have one in camera for personnel, okay. So I will ask for a motion to move us in camera.
So moved.
All right, Deputy Warden, can I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Okay, Councillor Brent Sampson. And any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried, so we'll take a little break.
Oh,
Let
thank
folks
you.
leave, thanks a lot.
There you go.
Yeah, call, or whatever you want. Yeah.